What's up everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video about what to do if somebody in your life comes out as transgender, whether that be a child, whether that be a sibling, whether that be a close friend of yours. And this is going to be a little bit of a do's and don'ts list because there's so many things that when I came out that I wish people would have done, or things that they did do that I was super grateful for. And then there were other things that people did that I was like, ooh, just made me really uncomfortable, made me feel bad, just like things that I wouldn't recommend doing if you want to keep a relationship and a good relationship with this person. Okay, so first thing, do your own independent research. I know that trans visibility is so minimal in our society today, so there are a lot of things that you are just not going to know. Even if you feel like you've been fairly exposed to trans people, I would still recommend doing more research, understanding what it's like, understanding what that person is going through, and just learning more about the community in general. More education is never going to be a bad thing. The reason that this is so important is so that your loved one doesn't feel the need to have to educate you on every single thing. The more you know, the better off it's going to be for both of you, so you can just understand some things that they would usually have to explain to other people. It will mean a lot to them. The one thing I would avoid doing when it comes to education would be what I guess I would call cis-splaining. Try not to explain different things that you know to them as if they don't know. Even if maybe they're still doing independent research, better for them to find that than you to sit down and try and explain their experience and the experience of their community to them. Unless you are one of our trans elders or a trans person, then you guys can kind of do that together. Next, don't say, well, before you told me you were this, so now you're saying this. Bringing up our past and what we've said in our past is not necessarily helpful. Because first off, it's okay for people's identities to develop over time, and it's also possible that maybe they just didn't want to tell you at that point what they were experiencing. Maybe they hadn't fully accepted it for themselves. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe it changed. All of those things are okay. And whatever their reason was for telling you something different before, leave that in the past and just move forward with this new information that they've told you. And don't get stuck to everything that either they said or you just believed about them in the past. Whatever the situation is, this person is probably in a vulnerable place coming to you and coming out to you and telling you that they're trans, which is scary, trust me. And it really doesn't feel good for somebody to bring up what you said 6 months ago or what you said 6 years ago and be like, well, you told me this, so what are you trying to say now? Well, I'm telling you what I'm saying now. Just believe me. Next thing that is super, super important, and I cannot stress this enough, do not out this person. And outing somebody means telling somebody that they're trans when they didn't give you permission to. Just keep that information to yourself. And something that's really awesome to do is ask that person, who are you out to? Who is okay to talk about this with? Are there different friend groups? Are there different people groups? Is there somebody that you'd like me to tell for you? Or is that something that you would like to do on your own? Would you like me to help you come out with somebody? Just be there for what that person needs. Same thing goes with names and pronouns. Ask them, hey, are you using different pronouns? Would you like me to call you by a different name? And again, when you find yourself in that situation, find out when and where it's okay to use those pronouns in that name, which might seem complicated, but it's going to be really helpful for that person's safety, for that person's well-being, because sometimes that might put them in a dangerous situation, or it might out them to people who they're not out to. Next thing I would recommend doing is asking questions when you start noticing difference. I honestly didn't want to have to come out to anyone. It's an inconvenience that queer people have, that heteronormative assumptions and cisnormative assumptions exist so strongly that everybody assumes that you're either straight or you're cis unless you tell them otherwise. But when you're noticing differences, ask them about it. But also, I would recommend giving them an out if they don't want to talk to you about it. You can ask and be that place where they can come, and that's an amazing thing to have. But you don't necessarily always want to talk about it. You say like, hey, I've been noticing that you've been posting this stuff on social media. I've been noticing that you've been dressing a different way and, introducing yourself a different way. Would you like me to do this? Or if you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine too. Just know that I'm safe to come to. And if and when you want to talk, I'm here and I'm available. In my situation, I didn't want to have to tell anybody to use my pronouns. I just wanted that to be a thing that just happened. I changed my pronoun on Facebook first, and if you see that somebody might have changed theirs on Facebook, feel free to ask them about it. Again, give them an out in case they don't want to talk to you about it. Then I started making videos on my Instagram and stuff like that, like, hey, these are my new pronouns. I would make a post like, hey, here's what I'm rolling with. And so many people in my life acted like they didn't see that, which is super weird to me because I can literally see who saw these posts, but still you continued to call me she, her, and completely ignored all these things that I was posting. Now, had I had a one-on-one conversation with you about my new pronouns? No, but you also did see it and you did know. It ended up being something that eventually I had to have those conversations with so many people, and some people that I've had those conversations with still don't really do it, and I'm going to have another conversation with them, and it's just making me more and more uncomfortable. So it'd be really easy and nice if I had never even had to have a conversation because you saw and observed what was going on and just changed your behavior. I noticed my sister started using my pronouns, which was super cool. Eventually, I did have a conversation with her just because I decided to sit down with all the important people in my life and have those conversations. And she's like, oh yeah, in my household with she and her boyfriend, she's like, we use they, them pronouns, and that's who you are. And I'm like, oh, it was such a relief to just be like, yes, you already did it, and I didn't even have to ask you. Other friends, when they noticed it changed on Facebook, they direct messaged me, they called me, and were like, hey, I've kind of noticed this. Is this what you want to be called now? So that was just really cool to have people reach out to me and start the conversation rather than me having to reach out to every person in my life individually and say like, hey, here's how to address me. Another thing to avoid doing, don't say, hey, I support you, but I would just wait till you're really sure before you make any permanent decisions. This was something that a few people in my life said to me, and honestly, it was really hurtful just because it felt like, A, they didn't believe me in what I was experiencing and that I could trust what I was experiencing to be true, and B, that it was just like they thought I was going to change my mind. There was just so many things that were just hurtful. They said, hey, just make sure you don't make any permanent changes. I would wait till you're this age to do anything that you can't really take back. And I was just like, do you not think that I've mulled over this in my head like a million gajillion times? And if I decided to do anything serious and permanent, that I would take that very seriously? To me, it's just like a slicker way of saying, are you sure this isn't a phase? Putting those seeds of doubt in people's minds is just, it's hurtful because this is stuff that we are already struggling with. So trying to invalidate our experience and it's saying that we can't trust our own minds, we can't trust our own bodies to make decisions that we know are good for us when really the only people who really know what's best for us is us. So don't try and give people advice on when and where and how not to have surgery. Don't send them videos of people who have regretted it. That stuff is so hurtful. While this is all probably very new to you, the person who's coming out to you, it's probably not new to them. This is something that they've likely been thinking about for a long time. And so you have to go through the process of understanding that and reshaping how you see that person and how you projected that person in your brain. But that's up to you. You don't need to project your fear, your confusion onto that person, because that's something that they've already had to go through. And if they're deciding to go on hormones, if they're deciding to get gender confirmation surgery, there's a lot of fear and confusion that will probably come along with that anyways, and you don't need to continue to perpetuate that. Something else that would be very helpful would be learning from the people that they're learning from. If you see them reading books by trans authors, go to the library and get that book and read it so you can consume some of the same information that they're consuming. If they're on social media and you know that they follow a bunch of different trans folks, go follow those people too, so you have more understanding of what their community looks like, so that you do understand that there is diversity within trans stories. That's super important. And you can be able to say like, oh, I was reading this the other day and I heard this. Or if they're talking about the book that they read, you can have a conversation with them about it, because you know the people that they're talking about and the role models that they look up to. One thing I wish I could say to people, which I guess I'm saying to you now, I love you no matter what is not enough. Showing them that you support them is the best way to tell them that you'll love them no matter what. Letting them know that you trust them and you trust their decisions, and celebrating their coming out with them. That would be so huge. And I wish I would have had that when I came out, knowing that people would support me and celebrate that with me and be proud of me for coming to this realization that was honestly very difficult to understand and to admit, and something that I was really proud of myself for. I wish I could have celebrated that with other people. I did get some I love you no matter what, but that's also coming from people that I know will never support me and will never love that side of me, and who will always wish that's something different. If that's you and that's what you think you've done and you think you can pat yourself on the back for it, it's not enough, and it still really hurts. And yes, am I grateful that these people didn't just disown me and not want me to be in their life? Absolutely. But it's also something that I grieve, that I will never be able to celebrate myself fully with these people. And I guess that's just a part of growing up. But it still sucks. So I love you no matter what is not enough. Celebrate with that person. Let them know that you support them, that you believe them, and that you're really proud of them for doing the difficult work it takes to understand who you are and live the life that you were always meant to live in a society that really wants to bring you down and pull you down. Let them know that you're not ashamed of them, and let them know that you're proud. Another really important thing, don't make this about you. It's not about you. Yes, do the work. Don't do the work in front of that person. Don't be like, hey, look what I'm reading. Look who I'm following. If you're messing up on pronouns, if you're messing up on a new name, apologize and move on. Don't be like, oh, this is so hard for me. Because people who are coming out as trans are probably concerned about being a burden, are probably concerned about people leaving them, are probably concerned about people not wanting to make the effort to make the changes, because that's what we're told. I thought all my friends were going to leave me. I thought people would not want to talk to me because they thought they might mess up the pronouns. So I just avoided changing my pronouns because I didn't want to be an inconvenience to anybody. Make sure that they know that you don't see them as an inconvenience. The best way to do that is not by telling them over and over again. It's by just making the changes and not making a big deal out of it, making it seem normal, because it is normal. And so if you're messing up pronouns, just be like, oh, sorry, repeat the sentence properly and move on. Don't make that person continually correct you. Correct yourself. Practice when that person is not around. The thing that I found when people apologize to me so much about pronouns is that they're waiting for me to say, oh, it's okay. When in reality, it's not okay and it doesn't feel good, but I don't want to have to be that person that affirms to you that it's okay. Yes, this is going to be a change. This is going to be difficult, but you don't need to sit and apologize every time and explain to them that it's so hard. They're going to understand because they had to go through that struggle. They probably called themselves by the wrong pronoun. They probably called themselves by the wrong name. So understand that that's something that they already know. That should be a given, not something that you need permission to do, and just get better. If you learned something, drop a thumbs up in the comment. If you already knew all of this, drop 2 thumbs up. Glad that this information is not new to you. If you are trans and you've had to come out, please leave a comment about the things that you wish, the people in your life would have known, things that are helpful. Continue on the conversation in the comments, or if you've had a loved one who came out to you and different things that you did that you found was helpful, please join the conversation. Subscribe to the channel for more similar content so you can keep growing and learning and doing better and being better. Thanks so much.